Hey everybody, welcome to our Orange and Brown Talk live post-game show. Dan Lobby, Mary Kay Cabot, Ashley Bastock here with you. We are in Pittsburgh, of course, the Browns 23-9 losers today in Pittsburgh. And we are going to go over everything that happened today. And Lance Reisland is going to jump on a little bit later too. He's going to go over what he saw. So full show coming your way. Let's get to it, Mary Kay. The Browns are 1-5. The city of Pittsburgh has been a house of horrors. That this Acrisure Stadium has been a house of horrors for this football team for a long time. And today just felt like another one of those days for this football team where everything that's wrong with it just got exposed by the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, we've got to start with this offense. 9 points. It just hasn't been good enough. They're averaging, I think it's somewhere in, it's like 13 point something points per game now, 6 games in. And, Dylan Gabriel hit 16 times today. It was just a really ugly performance offensively once again.
It really was. And scoring 9 points, which is their low of this season, takes me right back to the end of last year when they were scoring 6 and 7 and 3 and 10 points at the end of the season when they were already totally in the tank. Here they are fairly early on in the season scoring 9 points. This is kind of a disaster right now. And it's really, really unfortunate because I don't think it had to be this way. They started out the season with some promise on offense. They had Quinshon Judkins, although he showed up late. They had Jerry Judy, their Pro Bowl receiver from last year. They added Harold Fannin. They had David Njoku. They had a pretty good offensive line returning with Dewan Jones. Well, now they have horrible tackle issues. Their receivers are dropping passes left and right. They cannot get Dylan Gabriel or their quarterback protected. They're finding out that, oh, maybe it wasn't Joe Flacco's fault. I mean, we really kind of knew that it wasn't all Joe Flacco's fault, but they were ready to make a change. Now we know it's just a really young and fledgling, struggling offense. And Dylan Gabriel is tasked with holding this whole thing together while also having half the world clamoring for the backup Shador Sanders.
Yeah, I mean that's the other element of this too. Right now, Shador is one play away, and as this offense struggles, it's only going to continue. We're only going to continue to hear that noise build and build. I guarantee you, our chat on this live stream is going to be like 90% people saying, play Shador Sanders. If the offense keeps struggling, it's going to get to that point. It's not there yet, but it's going to that's going to start to get more and more realistic as we go along. But Ashley, just this ongoing theme of this season, just this offense, today they averaged 3.3 yards per play. They threw the ball a ton because they fell behind. They couldn't get the run game going, which is something we've talked about, that if you can't throw the ball, it's going to be hard to run the ball. This was just, there was no improvement today coming back against this Steelers defense.
There really wasn't. And the thing about the run game, Quinshon Judkins talked about this even when we spoke to him in the locker room after. He was expecting Mike Tomlin to throw a lot at him. And obviously they did. But for me watching it, it was almost like they didn't even have to do a ton because eventually the Browns were trailing by enough that you can't really run the ball the way you want to because you have to pass and look for big plays and try to conserve time as much as you can. But yeah, truly, this is just a nightmare. It like for this offense right now, I don't see what the solution is because there's just so many things going wrong. And look, obviously they have to try to fix it. But you think about the quarterback play, like Mary Kay said, I think all of us, everyone kind of knew not everything was falling on Joe Flacco. But look at the offensive line today. Look what happened there. Look at not only how many times he got hit, but now Jack Conklin's in the concussion protocol. Who knows if he's going to have to miss time? They just got him back, by the way, last week. And then Cam Robinson, the guy they go out and acquire, he suffers a knee injury. So they have tackle issues yet again. And this was the 6th game of the season. It was the 6th different starting offensive line combination. There's going to probably be a 7th now with the way we're trending. And on top of it, you have guys that aren't finishing their catches. Even a guy like Harold Fannin, who that is what he is known for. It's what we've seen. I think I was joking with you after the game, Dan, that I even asked Christian Jones, the tight ends coach, on Friday about Harold seems to have translated this skill from college of not dropping the football really nicely. Like, what as a rookie has allowed him to do that? And he had 2 drops today, I think, at least one that I can very much remember, because it was back to back with David Njoku one as well. But everything's going wrong. And then Quinshon has 30 some yards because nothing else is going right. And even though he's a great runner, when you face a smart coach and a tough defense, they are going to be able to much more easily account for you. So there's just so much wrong. I don't know what the solution is, quite honestly.
Yeah, so let's go to Myles Garrett, because obviously that was one of the stories. Mary Kay, you just put up a story at cleveland.com/Browns about Myles' reaction to this game. Myles, we're not even a year removed from him requesting that trade. Of course, he signs that big extension to stick around, but he was very frustrated after this football game. So what specifically, you were in there listening to him. I was in the locker room, so I didn't actually get to hear him talk. I just read the transcript. I haven't gone back and actually watched any video of it yet. But what do you think he is most frustrated about regarding this football, besides the obvious of being 1-5, regarding this football team and where they are?
Well, he said he is frustrated as hell by losing the same way every week. And we know exactly what that means. They have a good defense and they have an offense that cannot score any points. They headed in averaging 14 points or less than 14 points a game. And now they're averaging even less than that. They scored 9 points, which is as we mentioned, their season low. I mean, that's just absolutely pathetic. I mean, that just obviously they're going in the absolute wrong direction here. So he's very, very frustrated by that because they do have a good defense this year, one that is a championship caliber unit. And so my lights went
I
out.
was just going to say the lights went out. It's like the Browns offense. The lights just
When-
went out on Mary
That's
Kay.
right. So when Ashley's talking next time, I'll jump off.
Yeah.
Try to turn my light back on. Sorry about that. It's like I'm getting ready for Halloween, but I look like the Wicked Witch of the West right now. But anyways, so but the other thing I asked him was because I could tell he sounded defeated. Remember, this is a guy that asked out. He asked to be traded in the offseason because he wanted to go somewhere and win a Super Bowl and he was getting tired of the losing. And I asked him, is this like it was with Joe Thomas, where it just started to take such an incredible toll on him and it's hard to pick yourself back up after all of the losing? And he just gave a one-word answer, yep. And that's concerning because when he starts to feel defeated, he's your leader of this football team. He's the one tasked with trying to make sure that everybody else keeps their chin up off the floor. And he's starting to feel really down about all of this. Remember, Joe Thomas had to seek counseling because of all the losing. And Myles, it's starting to get to him. And he's going to have to do whatever he can do this week to try to get himself back into a good frame of mind because the team is just going to have to count on him that way.
All right, we'll let Mary Kay go turn on those lights here real quick. So she's just sitting there at the dark. Ashley, I think this is one of the interesting things, though, when we talk about where this team is at. Obviously, Myles Garrett voicing visible frustration in that press conference. We talked to Joel Bitonio after the game, and Joel has talked after so many losses. And he was talking about, the run game and how they threw the ball so much. Your quarterback's going to get hit that much when you throw the ball that many times. Like, this frustration is going to build. And it's only, especially on that defensive side, if they're not scoring points, that defense is going to get more and more frustrated. And whether they vocalize it like Myles did or not, it's going to happen. And obviously Joel's an offensive player, but even he seemed frustrated today.
Yeah, I was going to say that was actually an answer to my question in that scrum. And that's what I thought. I was like, this is not typical Joel. I mean, I could see it in his face, even as I was asking, that it was almost like, I can't believe I have to talk about this again. I can't believe we're in this same spot again that we were last year. That was kind of how I read it. And of course, look, he answered me, obviously gave me a good answer, was very polite. This is not in any way like a commentary on how Joel was. But when you're around these guys enough, you can sense these little things. When you talk to them enough and you do enough interviews enough with them enough, especially a guy like Joel, you can tell when he's frustrated, even if he's not going to say it in the same way like Myles Garrett does. And look, I mean, when Myles gets frustrated, I think it's notable because of everything with the trade requests this offseason and how much he was adamant that it was about winning. And then obviously, look, he gets the extension and that talk goes away. And we asked him again on Friday if he felt like those trades changed anything in terms of the team's goals. Were they essentially waving the white flag? And he explained why he didn't. But when you have an interview like today where he is so clearly frustrated, you start to wonder. Like, I think it's a fair thing to wonder about given his history and given just how he was acting. Mary Kay used the term feeling almost like he was looking defeated. That's concerning. Like, you want these guys to be upset after a loss, but when they just look totally defeated or they look like they just don't care, that those are kind of like the warning signs to me as somebody who, you know, has obviously been in losing locker rooms with this team before. So that part is the new interesting wrinkle in all of this that I'm sure we're going to be monitoring now.
Yeah, and I think back to even 2021 when Miles was just, you could see that frustration building when things were going sideways there with Baker Mayfield, and again the offense wasn't producing and the defense was having its own struggles as well that season. But you know, you could see that frustration, and I think back to those times when maybe he wouldn't say it, but you could just tell with his body language how frustrated he was, and I just you know, Mary Kay, because of that trade request, right? Because of that reworked contract that has that no trade clause, which even though it's called a no trade clause, it actually gives Miles some leverage if he were to go down that road again. That, you know, the Browns couldn't say, well, fine, you want to be traded, we'll send you to Tennessee or something. He can dictate terms a little more than he could the last time. You know, I'm not saying he's going to request a trade here in the next few weeks, but you know, he's not getting younger. We know he's thinking about his legacy. And it's just, I think it should raise some red flags in that organization when, you know, the best player on this football team is being very open about sort of how he feels about things. And we're only 6 weeks into this.
Well, that's absolutely true. I mean, I even noted in my my story or whatever, my column about Miles, was that, you know, you have to wonder if he's not going to ask out again. Now, I don't think it's financially feasible. I haven't looked at the math yet. It's really hard to get out from underneath a big contract like that because of salary cap considerations. So I'm sure it's probably impossible for anything like that to happen 1 year after he just signed this big blockbuster extension for $40 million a year, 123.5 guaranteed. Probably can't happen. But the last thing that you want is your star player on the football team feeling hopeless about things. So unless they can sell hope for after this season, and all is not completely lost this season because they do have some winnable games coming up. But unless they can find some offense, they're not going to win anything, right? They do have the 1-5 Dolphins coming to town, and they should be able to win that game, you would think. But I'm sure the Dolphins are thinking the same thing. So this season, again, they have a 2.3% chance right now of making the playoffs, and they're showing signs of unbelievable frustration, and it is kind of sad to see Miles's career, I would say, being wasted the way that it is right now, the same way that Joe Thomas's was. I do feel for him for having to go through this, knowing that he could have helped a team win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's just another kind of disappointing example that we've seen before with this football team. I mean, you could say the same thing about Joel. You know, some of these veteran guys are, especially with Joel, you know, considering we could be looking at his last year here. You're seeing this season slip away, and you do start to think about what it means for these guys long term. So Ashley, when you look at this offense, and like that is the main problem. There are other issues, obviously, but it's the main problem. I'm struggling to find solutions here. I'm struggling to sit here and come up with like, well, this is the fix because on the one hand, your offensive head coach and play caller should be doing a better job. On the other hand, I saw a whole lot of Gage Larvadan early in this football game, and I like Gage. He's a great story. I don't love him as your number 3 receiver against the Pittsburgh Steelers in week 6 of the season. So I think there's a lot of things at play here. I not trying to let Kevin off the hook. I think he certainly belongs in this discussion. But I think there's also a discussion about this receiver room that we've been spending so much time saying, man, it feels like they're short a guy or two in there. And here we are. That's kind of playing out early in this season. And of course, Jerry Jeudy is struggling too. So just so many things are compounding here to make this offense just non-functional.
Yeah, I mean, so much of it, I think, goes back to how the team is built right now and who the Browns are putting a lot of responsibilities on at this stage. I mean, Gage Larvadan is a good example. I think Gage Larvadan is a good undrafted guy, right? I think there could be an argument to try him at returner, but him playing critical downs early in a football game is just not something you would see on most teams when receiver is a marquee position. You know, I've thought about a lot about the last few weeks, the idea of them giving Isaiah Bond so much. Now, they really like Isaiah Bond. Isaiah Bond was undrafted, but that was due to his off the field circumstances. He was probably a 3rd round pick, maybe even a 2nd round pick if he had been drafted, and wasn't dealing with his off the field stuff. But the reality is he still missed most of training camp. And I feel like on most teams, a guy like that, they would have a bit longer of a runway because of their roster circumstances. They wouldn't throw so much responsibility on him immediately. And maybe by doing that, that allows you to avoid whatever the heck happened near the goal line today, where Dylan Gabriel throws a pass and it hit him in the helmet. Like, we don't know what happened on that yet, but those are the kinds of things that you just don't really see happen on other teams. And I do think so much of it goes back to how that room was built, or, you know, how the offensive line has been built, and they still haven't figured out tackle. And look, they took a gamble and said that left tackle job is DeJuan Jones's to lose. DeJuan Jones did a lot of good this offseason. He worked hard at that left tackle spot, but then he gets hurt in week 3 and is out for the year. And there's no real backup plan. It feels to me also like the second year they shortchanged themselves at the tackle position, even though they swore up and down that they weren't going to do that. Now, they had some good acquisitions this draft, but those 2 positions for me on offense are the 2 that we've been talking about for years. They've either felt rooms not entirely filled out in the case of receiver, or injury-prone positions that the team wasn't accounting for in the case of tackle. And now you're kind of in the same spot because you went about things in a similar way, and threw a bunch of untested guys in there. So when it comes to that, yes, I'm like, obviously how the team is built, there's some blame there. But the flip side of that, in terms of like, what can we put on Kevin? You know, I think back to watching that Minnesota Browns game last week and watching the Minnesota Vikings with 4 backup offensive linemen, and Kevin O'Connell telling Carson Wentz, of all people, a backup, to trust him and that he would protect him. And they did that. They like neutralized the Browns D-line on an 80-yard drive when they had to. Every team in this league faces injury adversity, but with the right innovation, you can figure out ways around that. And that's where I think it is still, okay, you have to look at the coaching and the play calling, because there are coaches and play callers who find solutions in real time to the same kind of problems.
Yeah, it does. It just feels like, and obviously I won't have a chance to go back and watch this game tonight, but at some point this week I'll go back and watch this. It feels like there's just not a ton of innovation and a ton of, we lost Mary Kay's lighting again. You want to go turn that on again, Mary Kay, before I ask you this last question about Kevin? All right. Yeah. Sorry. I had her muted too. This is life in this Pittsburgh press box. These lights, I know these lights just turn on and off on us. I'm waiting for mine to shut off too. I know that in the room next to us, nobody's in this one. They've been turning off. So we have no control over what happens here in this Pittsburgh press box. This is life on the road, covering the NFL. Okay. So Mary Kay, speaking to everything we just said about this offense, and of course, Kevin, it does bring up play calling. He did not rule out giving up play calling. Again, are we rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic if he does that, or is that a real fix to this? I don't know, but it's at least interesting that he didn't just completely rule that out when he was asked about it after the game.
Yeah, I think they'll look at everything, but I think the other thing that Kevin likes to guard against with some of the coordinators that he has is that especially if the offense is struggling, he likes to take responsibility for that himself. Tommy Reese is a first year coordinator. Maybe he'll throw it into his lap, this hot potato that is this Browns offense right now. But maybe Kevin will keep it himself and just stay the course a little bit and see if they can't get it rolling along a little bit better than it is right now, especially because once again they're playing a very challenged football team on Sunday. But no matter who's calling the plays right now, they don't have what they need at the receiving core or that at their pass catching core. They just don't have it. I mean, at least when Carson Wentz needed to put together an 80-yard drive, he had Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. So Dylan Gabriel is looking out there, and his number one receiver right now, he did make some catches in this game, but he did have one or two drops, one big one on 3rd and 19 on the opening drive, and then one later in the second half that some in the press box considered to be a drop. And so we'll have to go back and look at that one. But certainly Jerry isn't able to do what the Browns need him to do right now, but they keep saying, we believe in him. We believe in him, and we know he's going to work through this and he's going to come out of it. Cedric Tillman is on injured reserve. Is he going to be the answer when he gets back? Again, tackle problems. They just to get through the rest of the season, they might have to trade for another tackle or something. I don't know what they're going to do in that situation, because if you can't get your quarterback protected adequately, it's really going to be hard to do anything on that offense. So don't know what they're going to do about that. I don't know that play calling, changing that over to Tommy Reese is going to do much of anything for you, but I mean, they might just be desperate enough to try anything right now. And, you really can't argue with whatever they are going to try.
Yeah, I mean, even if just I don't know, maybe getting a different voice in that headset or something. I don't know. Like, I don't know what the solution is, and again, I like when I say that I don't know, and that changing to Tommy Reese would be the answer. That doesn't absolve Kevin Stefanski. I mean, I think that's a part of this is it just hasn't been good enough. But it's a lot of things. It's the personnel. It's the play calling. It's the offense. It's a bunch of young guys. It's a rookie court. There's a million things. It's all the mistakes. It's your best receiver dropping passes and committing penalties. I mean, Ashley, it's just these compounding mistakes here. So it's just not as simple as make this one fix, everything's going to be better. There are some real systemic issues here.
Yeah, I mean, think about that first drive, which you just alluded to, right? Jerry Jeudy gets whistled for that unnecessary roughness penalty because I forget who he ended up like hitting in the head, whichever Steelers corner. I wrote the story about it, and I don't have Mary Kay's memory for these details at the moment. And he gets that call, puts them back 15 yards. So then they're facing 2nd and 23. And then 2 plays later, he drops a ball down the left sideline. So that to me was kind of the beginning of showing this Jerry Jeudy's performance and how it kind of mirrors this Browns offense or the Browns passing game issues and the struggling and the self-inflicted stuff and the drops, the mistakes. And it just is tough. I think back to that Joe Flacco quote about the offense is going to go as Jerry goes. And Jerry hasn't gotten going yet this year. His last 100-yard game was last year in week 15 against Kansas City. It's like a 9-game stretch where he's failed to hit 100 yards. And he's talked about knowing he needs to be better and keeping a good attitude, but the circumstances right now are just not ideal. And like we talk about it every week, I think people were maybe hopeful that when Dylan stepped in, maybe it was just a Jerry and Joe chemistry issue, that things would pick up for him. And so far through 2 weeks of that, we really haven't seen that. And it still has been the same problems.
Okay, I think are we good here? Are we ready to hand things over to Lance? All right, I will let Mary Kay and Ashley go then. I will talk to both of you here very shortly because we're all in Pittsburgh in the same press box. So I'll talk to you guys in a little bit. Okay, now this is always the test. This is the idiot test here. Can I get Lance Reisland into this room live on YouTube? And can we make this work? Okay, I hear Lance. I see Lance. Lance,
Hello,
can you hear
hello.
me?
How are you?
Look
I
at
can.
us.
Are we good?
Season
Yes,
pros, season pros. Okay,
a little bit.
Lance Reisland is here. Browns 23-9 losers today. Lance, we were just talking about Kevin Stefanski. We were talking about this offensive scheme. He did not rule out potentially switching play callers. Again, I mentioned this. I haven't had a chance to rewatch the game. I've really only seen it here in Pittsburgh live on the field. So I'll get a better idea of what this offense looked like when I get a chance to do that. But tell me what you're seeing from this offense right now. Why were they only able to average 3.3 yards per game today or per play today?
Well, today was they absolutely could not get the run game going, and it had a lot to do with the Steelers' run scheme. They cover that nose, that center a lot with the nose and that odd front, and they really, it's one of those things when people say Tomlin is this after a bye week, and I don't really buy into all those numbers. Sometimes I know they're important, but what it tells me is exactly what you saw today. What Dylan Gabriel had success with was short passes and the run game, and the run game helped. Now the Browns have an identity, and what that identity is now is running the ball with Quinshawn, and he obviously runs the ball very hard. But when you have an identity, now you got to start to be a little bit more creative with your run game. So for me, the Browns are very one-dimensional in their run game right now. A lot of duo and a lot of zone, where Kevin in the past has been very, very dynamic in his counter games and pulling guards and pin and pull, and they're just not doing a lot of that. In fact, before you and I got on, I started to break down the first 6 weeks of the season. I'm going to get an exact number of what type of runs they're running, because I'm just not seeing a lot. And even though Junkins has had a lot of done well, but these NFL teams are good too. And Tomlin's good after a bye week because he knows he's going to take away easy throws and they're going to stop the run game. And they made them stretch the field. Now, I thought Gabriel did some good things. I thought he did some bad things. But this is much more than just him. The pass protection is horrendous right now. Really struggling with the run game inside. And for me, it's just a matter of there is no rhyme or reason right now. And Kevin Stefanski has always been really good at setting plays up. And you can't set plays up when you can't run the ball. And that's what his game is you only know what you know. So it doesn't look very good when you can't get the run game going with Kevin Stefanski, because that's what he bases everything off of.
So let me ask you this, because I think this is an important factor. If I'm a defensive coordinator looking at this thing, I'm going into every game and I'm saying we're not going to let them run the football. We're just not, until Dylan Gabriel and this passing offense shows me that they can do it, that they can threaten me. I'm going to make sure they can't run the football. It feels like that's kind of what Pittsburgh was doing today. And then, of course, Pittsburgh gets the lead. The Browns end up throwing the ball a bunch of times as a result. Although sometimes I think coaches panic a little too much and get away from the run a little too much when they fall behind. That's probably another podcast topic, for another day. But I guess this team is going to have to be the favorite phrase of Kevin and company, complementary, right? Not just offense helps out defense, but the passing game has got to help open up the running game. And I just wonder if this was a case of that today, where that wasn't there.
Well, you know what they're having trouble in that 12 personnel a little bit. Though Fannin and Njoku have to win all the time when they're in 12 personnel. And that's got to be, I don't care if Fannin's a rookie or not. They can run the ball, but when they get in 12 personnel, you're absolutely right. Teams are going to say, we're going to stop the run. And that's what an identity does for you. So regardless of how they played today, you got to flush it. I know everybody doesn't want to hear that, and people don't like to hear, but that's the only way you can do it. Doing it the other way doesn't work. So what I would, my suggestion is you're spot on. So I'm going to get in that 12 personnel, and I'm going to find out what the Miami Dolphins do. And right now I'm already watching it because I want to know how can we get in 12 personnel, run the ball if we need to, but then find the matchups, because if they're going to stop the run, that has a lot to do with the personnel that's on the field for the defense. And now I don't care how good linebackers are. Those are really tough covers, but you can only do that if you can run it. So there's that balance that they have, that complementary football. And for me, the special teams have as much their hand in this pot as anybody else. And that's going kind of overlooked. And I'm not overlooking that because, you know me, I love special teams, and that's really costing them as well. So, but yeah, it's just, they're going to have to figure out, teams are going to take away the short passing game, and they're going to have to take some vertical shots. And that's really what it comes down to. Complete them or not, they're going to have to show that they'll throw them, because they're not even throwing them right now.
Why do you think that is? Is it a result of just not having the horses at receiver? Is it a result of, is it the quarterback? Is it the protection? All of the above? Why do you think that is?
Well, I think there's a list of it, but first of all, foremost, it's a young quarterback, and I'm obviously I'm really high in Dylan Gabriel, but if you go back to, I can't wait to watch the All 22 tomorrow. But he's missing some of the things that come open, and not everything is a bad throw. And sometimes I always talk about that levels concept. Sometimes he hits that first level, but the third level is open. But you only take that third level if you're really, really confident and you're confident in your pass protection. And right now, they're with the injuries, their pass protection with the tackles is about as bad as it gets. They are absolutely not really good. Now, what happens with that? You see the Browns in that double wing a lot. So those guys have to chip and then get into the routes late, which means everybody gets to drop, and they're keeping things in front. And so those tackles have to hold up a little bit so they can get in some 5-out kind of concepts. And once again, so you start with Gabriel, pass protection, no run game, conservative play calling. And as a coach, I want to back Kevin Stefanski here, because I don't care if it's high school, college, or pro. You just said it absolutely right. As a guy who called plays for 25 years, we panic. And we especially panic when we're not playing very well. And we panic when we get, when Kevin is rolling, when offensive coordinators are rolling and it's 7-0, you're like, who cares? We're going to get this back. We got players. We got Amari Cooper back today. We got these guys, right? But when you're not doing well, 7 points seems like a lot more than 7 points. And you said it best. We start to panic. We start to go to we're down by a bunch. Even though we're not, that's kind of how we think. So I've been there. It's not fun. It's what you get. It's what they got. Those guys get paid big money for, but it's still hard.
Yeah, and you know what? That's one of those things. Like, I understand what you're saying, and obviously you're someone who's worn that headset and knows what it is to be in those battles, right? But I guess I don't love hearing that, though. If not, and look, I don't know that Kevin Stefanski panicked. I don't want to put that on him necessarily and say that he did, but his reaction to falling behind was obviously to put Dylan Gabriel in a position where he threw the ball a bunch. And that led to 16 quarterback hits by the Steelers. And even Joel Bitonio after the game was saying, like, you throw the ball that much, your quarterback's going to get hit. But I also think, and again, if Kevin gives up play calling, let's see if it works. I don't think this offense has been very good. I don't know what they're trying to do. I don't know, we're not seeing a bunch of motion. We're not seeing a bunch of innovation out of this offense, it feels like, and that's on Kevin. So, but I also think there's some big personnel issues here too, Lance. Like, again, I said it with Mary Kay and Ashley. Gage Larvidan's a great story. I don't want Gage Larvidan playing 50 snaps a game. I don't know what his final snap count's going to be. He left the game with a concussion today after that hit, but I think it's going to be higher than it should be for a guy like that. And I just think there's a lot of things conspiring here to make this offense bad. And I think one of those things does include, again, for all the people in the chat, I think one of those things does include Kevin Stefanski and the play calling and the offense they're running. I think it all goes into one big pot, and it's turned into this just awful tasting soup that nobody wants to eat. And we're getting shoved down our throats every Sunday.
Well, I'll go back. I want to retract a little bit. I don't think the term I use, panic, is good. We press.
Right. Yeah.
That's a better term. So press. Now, I agree with you. Now, here's what I agree with. One is, I've said this before, coordinators and quarterbacks are the two positions, one position as a player and one coaching position. Those are the two positions where you can get a drastic change in terms of philosophy, play calling, things like that. No other position can you do that. But I will say this, regardless of who's calling the plays right now, if you can't pass protect, it doesn't matter who's calling the plays. So that, everybody can be the hatred that people get. And once again, I'm all about, some of the message I've received today because of how I view this team is great, because it tells me people are invested. I never wanted to have a job, especially in this world with sports and football, as a coach and in the media now. Browns fans are invested. Now, they don't always say it the best way, but I understand and I get that, because they are invested and it means a lot to them. So that's why I like covering the Browns. That's why I like football, because football is the one sport where people get really mad when you don't do the right things and win. So, So if he doesn't feel that he's getting into a rhythm and doing those things. And a lot of that has, Kevin is a very similar play caller to a lot of us where we're not, we build on things. And when you can't build on things because of your personnel and who you are, sometimes it looks real stale. And when I was coordinator, when I even at the high school level, you got to get more input. It's different the NFL at all levels of football, but the bottom line is you're trying to win football games. And the one thing that Kevin has up with bringing in Vrabel and bringing in Schwartz, he's not afraid to do whatever he's got to do for the team. Obviously, what they're doing is not working, but those are things that happen. Now, if you change it, that doesn't mean it's automatically going to be great. That's what people got to understand, because there's some fundamental things, the run game and pass protection, that have to get better. Now, could they slide protection differently? Could they go do different protections? There's a lot of things they can do, but if they don't get better tackle play, this is going to be a long season for that offense.
Yeah, I just think there's, again, I think there's a lot of things conspiring here. So I guess let's do this here. We are going to wrap up here a little bit. We were running a little bit late, but I guess what's something you want to talk about? We talked about the offense. We talked about the play calling. Give me something on your mind about this game. This is me being a bad host and not having a topic for you.
No worries.
I'm putting it on you. What's something you want to talk about? What's something that maybe Ashley, Mary Kay, and I didn't cover, something we haven't talked about yet that you took away from this game?
Have you guys talked about special teams at all?
We did not talk a lot about special teams, no.
So, and I know it's not a super exciting topic for people to understand, but the reason I bring it up is because when you are struggling on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, the special teams become, they were lucky to get a block in the back because the Steelers had everybody blocked on that punt return. The running into the kicker. These are all things that are momentum killers that these guys have had all season. So when you don't win that phase of the game, it kills you in field position. Lost yardage, I'm doing a post on, because that part of the game is often people don't want to hear it right now. They want to hear about the offense and who's going to quarterback. And there are so many little things on this football team that are hurting them. And as much as the offense is hurting them, the special teams are just as at fault in this mess right now. And that's what they got to fix. And however they're going to do it, my thing is, what do you think? Do you think the special teams, has it in your years of covering the Browns, have they ever been this bad where they've cost the Browns games almost?
I'm sure, like when during the 1-31 stretch, they were bad because those rosters were so bad. And I mean, they've had kicker issues in the past. But like the running into the kicker thing is such a backbreaker, because obviously, look, was this offense going to get it together and win this game? I don't know. But the score at the half, let's see, it was what, 9-3 at the half?
Yeah, 9-3
So they come out, the drive stalls, Corey Bajorquez with a great punt, and it pins the Steelers back. They force a punt. They're going to get the ball at their own 35-yard line, which is decent field position. But instead, it's a 5-yard running into the kicker on Cam Thomas. And guess what the Steelers do? They turn around and turn that into a touchdown. It's 16-3. And like, that's pretty much insurmountable for this offense right now. And we've talked about it. The way this team wins is Big Ten Iowa Hawkeyes football. Field position, punt, your favorite saying, end every drive with a kick. Like, that's the way this thing is right now. That's how this team has to win. And they just can't overcome those mistakes.
Yeah, and for me, when you guys, it's such a hard topic. And I'll be honest with you, when you struggle on offense or defense, and you only have so many hours in a day, and you only have, even at the NFL level, you and I know both, they're only on the field so long in the NFL with collective bargaining. So there's not a ton of live action to get better at special teams. And when you're struggling like they are on offense, I guarantee you there's such a focus by Stefanski and his staff on how can they get this offense better, that sometimes those things get left behind. And once again, I always refer to my dad in terms of football terms, is when one phase is struggling, make sure the other two phases are, no matter what they do on offense right now, they're not going to be an explosive offense. They need to continue to work on offense, but they better make sure that defense continues to be good. And they better make sure they clean up special teams. So at least they're equal on special teams and winning defense. Then you got a shot, because you just said it. Then you have better field position. That's complementary football. All those things tie into it. And people don't like to hear that, but that's such a boring, real thing in football. That what you just said was an absolute killer for a defense. They they force a big punt and then they go out and then they rough the punter and that defense runs back in. That's such a letdown for a group that's playing that hard. So you're spot on. That's got to get cleaned up as well.
And just, I guess one more thing here, right? It's like, it's the, and this was part of Myles Garrett's frustration. This is part of Kevin's frustration. This is part of Joel Bitonio's frustration. It is the same. We're talking about the same things every week, right? We're talking about special teams. We're talking about an offense that can't score. We're talking about drops from Jerry Jeudy and Harold Fannin and, Njoku. And, we're talking about those penalties. Like Jeudy had some costly penalties today. He had the unsportsmanlike, and then he committed the OPI on what would have been a roughing the passer that offset that. So it's mistakes. It's just the same thing every single week that we talk about. And here's the thing. The Miami Dolphins are 1-5, and their quarterback was calling people out today for not showing up to players only meetings or being late. Like, things are a mess there. And Mike McDaniel is perpetually on top of the favorite to be the first coach fired. But guess what? You go out there next week and you make special teams mistakes and commit penalties and drop passes, you're going to be 1-6, and the Dolphins are going to get their second win of the season because they're looking at the Browns saying, hey, that team's 1-5 and can't score. Let's go up there and get a win.
And I saw what Tua did, and I'm not necessarily, I don't always like the wording, but it's okay to hold people accountable, and it's okay not to have, not to be sensitive about stuff. These are professional athletes that get paid a lot of money. And you're right. If the thing is the same, that also starts in practice for me. And obviously you guys don't get to watch practice like we do in the summer, but that's part of it. Whatever they're doing at practice, change it. If you're not hitting a lot, maybe hit. I always go back to that, but doing the same things, that's part of what coaches like Kevin Stefanski and me. So I'll put myself on the spot there too when I was coaching. We get in such creatures of habit, and we've had success at what we do. Sometimes you got to change it up, and it's really hard to do. But that's where the Browns are at right now. And, I like when all the guys kind of, I don't say called each other out, but hold each other accountable, because no one cares. All right. And you got to figure it out, because the Dolphins, you just said it, the Dolphins are thinking, as much as people are going, oh, the Dolphins are finally, with the schedule gets easier. Dolphins are saying the same thing. So you have to impose your will. Like today, I was a little disappointed because the Browns got pushed around a little bit. They were physical with the Browns, and the Browns didn't really respond like they have in the past.
Okay, I'm going to let you go unless you got anything else. You got anything else you want to add here before I?
No, I look forward to. We'll talk this week. We'll do the recap, but I look forward to seeing if the Browns are missing plays down the field and what's going on in some of these runs and the complimentary stuff. I'll have better answers for you once I get that all 22 broken down for us this week.
Great. All right. Well, let me tell you, everybody, what's coming this week. If you're like new here, if you're just like, oh, I'll check out this live stream on YouTube. We do 5 pods every single week. So like pretty much every day. Monday is going to be a Hey Mary Kay. Those questions come from our football insiders. To get involved in that, it's cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page. Tuesday, Lance joins the show and goes over the film that he watched from this game, from whatever previous game. That's every Tuesday. We set up the week on Wednesdays, and then we do a big preview pod. Lance is involved in that. He gives us his scouting report. That goes up usually either late Thursday or early Friday morning. A lot of those go on our YouTube. So if you are listening to this pod after the fact and you want to get on our YouTube, it's Cleveland Browns at cleveland.com. There's actually an Orange and Brown Talk tab there. And we try to go live every Sunday at 8 o'clock. Sometimes it's a little more like 8:15, depends how things go post-game and all of that. But we try to go live on our YouTube channel every single week after these games. And of course, if you are watching on YouTube, but you're not subscribed on the pod, wherever you listen to your pods on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, go look for Orange and Brown Talk. Hit that subscribe button, leave us 5-star reviews, all of that good stuff. Okay, so we're going to wrap up our post-game edition of the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. For Mary Kay, Ashley, and Lance, I am Dan.